that, select. So first let us draw the alphabet B. For that, select this rectangle and draw a rectangle. Now take pencil tool and draw the curve of B. This way you need to draw the curve. And join it. Now let us extend the length of rectangle and increase the size. Now take smooth tool and move over the curve so that we can get a nice curve shape. Now select them and fill with color. Select the anchor point and use arrow key on your keyboard and take it down and make some angles. Similarly do on the bottom. Now select both and remove the outlines. Now take a pen tool and draw the roof of the house. And join the points. Now take rectangle and draw the window. Draw a small rectangle over it and align it to the center both horizontally and vertically. Now select this and double click on rotate tool and make a duplicate. Now select all and do minus front. Now bring it here. Now it looks perfect. Now fill the color. Remove the outlines and select the objects and give some offset so that we can make some gap. Choose different color to make visible the offset. Now press and hold Alt key and delete this portion. Similarly, select the offset and this and press and hold Alt key and delete this portion. Now change the color. Now let us save this in transparent and now open Photoshop. Open the mockup. Double click here. OK. And now open our transparent image that we have saved from Illustrator. Now drag it to the mockup file and unmark the background of mockup and close it. Click yes. Wait and now check. You can
face is turned off. Next we're going to grab the ellipse tool, left click and hold shift to draw a circle. And with that circle selected, just select none as the fill. So we just have a black stroke. And we'll put that in the middle there. and then go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in Place. This creates another copy of that circle, and we can hold down Alt and Shift on the keyboard and left click from one of the corners to scale to the center. Now this area in the middle is going to be white. We're going to knock that out later in the tutorial so we can actually see through that. So next we're going to select this smaller circle, and again Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in Place. Definitely some shortcuts there worth learning, but we're going to hold Shift and scale up from one of the top corners until it snaps and aligns to this top edge. So these two need to be level. And we're going to do the same again. We can go Edit, Copy and Paste in Place, or what we can do is just with our shape selected, hold Alt and Shift and drag down. Now Shift will keep it perfectly vertically straight, and Alt will create a copy of that shape. And again we can zoom in, check these both line up. Now this is quite important because otherwise if some shapes don't line up later in the tutorial, things will get quite complicated. Okay, so now we can drag over everything, and from the alignment panel on the right, if you don't see that, just go to Window and down to Align. What we're going to do is align these horizontally in the center like this. And we can then select that medium circle, and again hold Alt and Shift, we'll drag that down to create one more copy, and then we'll just shift that copy to the left so it lines up with that left edge. Now at the moment, all of these shapes have a stroke weight applied, they have some styling. If you'd like to see a wireframe view that removes any styling just to check everything lines up perfectly, you can go into outline mode by pressing Command or Control Y, and we can see a wireframe there. Everything looks good to me, and it's Command or Control Y to come out of outline mode. So we're not going to do one on this right side here, but what we are going to do next is drag over everything, and I think I'll just move this up here. And again we can either go to Edit, Copy and then Paste in Place, or just hold Alt and Shift and drag down. And we're then going to hover over one of the corners and rotate this around, and you can see the number of degrees here. Now we need 180 degrees, it's quite hard to get this manually as you can see, so if we just hold down Shift, it will snap to 45 degree increments, so we can get that 180 rotation nice and easy. And we're now going to drag this up. So the top of this now needs to line up perfectly with the bottom of the smallest circle that we created at the beginning. And again we can zoom in, press Command or Control Y to go into outline mode. Perfect. And there we go, we've created a mess of circles, but you can start to see the shape for our 8 or infinity symbol coming together. Now, for me personally, I like to create checkpoints while I do this, so I'm just going to select everything, hold Alt and Shift, and drag a copy out there. One, because it's just nice to see the process looking back, but two, in case anything goes wrong, I've got all of these circles here before I started combining them together, which is what we're going to be doing next. So we'll just pop that back in the middle. Next, we're going to select the Shape Builder tool over here, and we'll just zoom in. Now with the Shape Builder tool, you can click in a segment, you can drag through multiple segments or shapes, and it will combine them into a single shape. Or you can hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, and you'll see the plus changes to a minus, and it will actually knock that out and remove it from the shape. Now because this is going to be like a number 8 infinity symbol, we're going to hold down Alt on these two smaller circles and left click. Now because we have strokes here, it doesn't look like anything's changed, but it has actually just knocked those out. So when we come to adding our fills later, you'll be able to see that they won't be there, it'll just be transparent. So any background image or anything that goes behind it will be see-through. So now we can drag over everything again, and we're going to start combining all this together. So let's grab that Shape Builder tool and just start left clicking on these segments and dragging through. Now if you do anything like this and you make a mistake and you think, oh no, I've gone wrong, just go to Edit, Undo, have another go. So we'll drag this one around here. This is quite a large one in the middle. So if you don't capture everything on your first kind of go through, don't worry, you can see I'm just dragging through. And it's always a really good idea to zoom in nice and close as well. You can see this bit here, just missed that. So we'll just drag through and capture that back in. I hope there's another one on the other side as well, because of course there is. And what else have we got? So we'll drag through this one. And then we've got this one. And there we go, looking pretty good. So you see that once you get familiar with the shape builder tool, it's incredibly easy to combine shapes together. And at the moment we have a variety of different stroke weights. If you do want a more linear version of this to use, just go to your stroke panel with everything selected and just change the align stroke to the center. And all the weights will be the same. However, we're not doing a linear version anyway, so that doesn't matter, but just a useful tip if you're interested. We're going to swap our fill and our stroke. So we now have no stroke and a black fill. Now, it looks like a plain black, boring number 8, but if you press Command or Control Y, you can see in outline mode we still have all of our shapes. They are just all the same color, so it just looks like this, and we can hover over these segments and see them selected. Now, this next step is pretty awesome because we start to see it really come to life. So if we go over to our swatches panel on the right and just pick any two swatches, it really doesn't matter right now, but just double click them. The important thing is to check the global box, because what this will allow us to do is later in the tutorial, once we've added all our gradients and we've kind of got everything working, we can instantly just change the colors by changing these two swatches. We don't have to go and manually re-add color to every different segment. So now what we can do is just pick one segment. So I'm going to pick this segment here and make sure the fill is selected. And from the gradient panel on the right, just click anywhere on the gradient slider and it adds that default black to white gradient. So we're going to double click on the black swatch first, and you'll see it brings up the swatches panel, and we'll just pick that darker blue. And next we'll double click on the white swatch and pick the lighter blue. And you can see it's added our gradient, graduating from the lighter blue to the darker blue. And you can change the type here as well. So we have linear, which graduates from one direction straight through to another, whether it's horizontally or vertically. And radial, which starts in the center and then emanates out towards the edges. And you can of course quickly reverse the gradient by clicking this icon here. So it depends what you're going for. So at the moment we've got a light blue to dark blue radial gradient applied to this one segment. So what we're going to do next is drag over everything, and this is my favorite part in the tutorial because this is where the magic happens. We now click on the eyedropper tool, and if we left click on the gradient in this segment we've created, it will apply that same radial gradient from light blue to dark blue to every single segment. So watch this. And you can see we've just taken a massive leap forward and we've almost finished our logo. Now all of these segments are separate shapes, so you can pull them apart if you really want to. But more than that, you can select them and you could change one of them from a radial gradient to a linear gradient and swap that around. So we'll do that for these inner segments here. We could go and adjust the angles if we wanted to, so we could change that to 45. Something like this. It depends entirely what you're going for. We could take this one in the middle here that has a radial gradient and we could add a linear gradient. Move the lighter blue to the center and just hover over the bottom of the gradient slider. You'll see the plus icon appears and we can add a new swatch. And then we can double click that and select our darker blue. So now it goes from the darker blue to the lighter blue to the darker blue, and we can add an angle on that as well, just to match the kind of flow of this larger segment. Now if we bring these little diamonds in, we can adjust the dominance of one swatch on the gradient over, and lighter blue very harsh in the middle, which we don't really want, But if I drag those out towards the edge, we can actually make a much smoother gradient that graduates a lot more softly from one color to another. Go in and bring these swatches in to make that more prominent. And once I've changed that one segment, I can just hold the gradient I want to use. And you can see it applies the preview box and drag these sliders, and it will adjust everything in real time. So we could go for a darker blue here, click OK. We can switch over to our lighter blue swatch, so we'll double click that, check preview, and we'll start adjusting this as well. And we'll just jump back to our blue one. And you can see that we can actually make changes to this all in real time. Keep adjusting those sliders. And what this does with these swatches, it makes it effortless to change the color, but it also means that we don't have to go back into the gradient and start reapplying colors to different segments or anything. We can just simply update it from those two swatches. And you don't even have to just use two swatches. You could even go and add some more color into one of these segments here, and you could create a multicolor logo if you want. And it's cool because we've got the process over here as well, so we've got this to reference if we need to go back. But there we go, we've created and 1000 pixels high, and the color mode is set to RGB. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab the ellipse tool from the toolbar, just left click and hold shift to draw a circle, and then I can drag this circle into the center of the artboard. You can see it snaps nicely. And one more thing I'm going to do quickly is go to view and just switch off snap to pixel, just so we are only snapping to the point. So let's click that, turns it off, fantastic. Okay, so next I'm going to select this shape and go to edit, copy, edit, paste in place, hover over the bottom right corner and hold shift. Holding shift will scale it down proportionally and stop it from distorting out of shape or anything crazy like that. So we'll go for something like this and just hold shift to drag it horizontally to the center. You can see it snaps in place, lovely. Let's go to edit, copy, edit and paste. And with that copy of the smaller circle, we can hold shift and drag that to the bottom. Boom, you can see it snaps in place. And we have a fill at the moment, so let's just drag over to select everything. And from the bottom of the toolbar, we'll click on this icon here, and we'll set the fill to none. So we just have a black stroke or a black outline. Super duper, right, let's drag over everything to select it. And again from the toolbar, we're going to grab the shape builder tool this time. That's this one here. And we can hover over different sections that intersect or overlap, and you can see it's marked by this gridded texture. And we can actually click in one segment and drag through. You can see a little squiggly line here. Drag through into another segment and it highlights the selection with a red outline. Now what's going to happen when I release my mouse button is it will combine these two sections into one shape. Voila, there we go. So I can do that up here as well. Select this top section and just drag with my cursor my little squiggly line, and once that crosses into another section you can see it becomes highlighted. Release, and there we go, we are done. So what I can do now is I can pull these apart, but you can see we've still got a shape remaining in the center, and we need to remove that because if we don't, well, it can cause some issues later down the line. And if I put these back together with the undo feature, we will get some doubling up of these lines here, which as I say can cause problems. So let's select everything again and grab that shape builder tool one last time. And you can see on my cursor I have a plus icon at the moment. This indicates that I'm going to be combining shapes together and adding them. If I hold Alt on the keyboard, it changes to a minus, and this will remove shapes or subtract them from the selection. So with Alt held, if I hover over this centerpiece and click, it doesn't look like much has changed, but actually it's removed that entire center area. And if I separate these, you can see that the shape is now just made up of these two halves. So again, let's undo that, put it all back together, but essentially we've created the basic structure for the logo, and now what we can do is drag over everything, and from the bottom of the toolbar, swap the fill and the stroke, so they're both black, and there we go, we're now ready to add some color. So first of all, let's go up to the swatches panel here. Now you probably won't see this because I've docked this here specifically as part of my workspace. If you want to see it, just go to Window and down to swatches, you'll find it there. Or you can select a shape and you'll find it here under the appearance panel. But I just like to have mine docked here on the side so I can select colors and do things with them just when I haven't got any objects selected. So again, I'll deselect everything and I'm just going to pick let's go for 4. So I'm just going to pick 4 swatches at random and just make sure I check the global box and click OK. It doesn't matter what colors they are because we will be changing them in a moment. And you can see by checking the global box, it adds this little white tab in the corner. And the reason I'm using global swatches is because once I've set up all my gradients, I can control those colors from the swatches panel without the need to go back into the gradient and edit each one manually on here. It'll all make sense in a moment, I promise. Smashing! So I've defined my 4 global swatches in the swatches panel, and I'm going to now select the shape and select the gradient tool from the toolbar on the left. And you can see over here in the gradient panel, we've got a few different options. We have linear, which is either left to right or vertically or diagonally. Essentially, it runs in a straight line. We have this one here, radial, which goes out from the center or towards the center. And in CC 2019, we've got the new freeform gradients, which I love and is what we're going to be using today, because linear doesn't really go around this curve and radial doesn't really work. So let's click on this. And you can see it adds these 2 points here with some colors by default. Let's just move these around and I can click anywhere else and it will add another one. So we're going to add 4 in total, and then I can select these by clicking on them. And I can click on this little circle at the bottom and it adjusts the area that they cover. So what I'm going to do now is position this one here. This is going to be my darkest color. And I'm just going to apply each of my 4 swatches to each of these points. So I'm just selecting the points with the gradient tool and assigning a global swatch. There we go. And I can now move these around. I love this. In real time, you can see how it all changes and really control your gradient. And you can see that it's perfect for this shape as well, because I can just go around this curve. And there seems to be a sneaky one that snuck in here, a bit of white. So I can just select this one, hit delete or backspace on the keyboard, and poof, it is gone. So what I'm going to do now is, now I've created the basic structure of my gradient, I can just deselect everything by clicking on the workspace. And now open up these swatches individually. And this is where you see the benefit of having global swatches. I can now check the preview box and I can fine tune this color from the swatch. So we'll start with a nice dark one here. And just open up the next swatch, check preview. And I think we'll go for something like this. So I'm just moving along through each swatch and adjusting that gradient in real time until I get something I'm happy with. Last one, check preview. Looking pretty good. Okay. And then I can go back to the first one and just maybe tweak this a little bit more. I could probably spend hours doing this, fine-tuning my gradients. Of course, that's not really appropriate for a tutorial. But there we go. I think we'll settle something like this. Okay, there we go. Fantastic. So I've now created my gradient. I could go and create another gradient for this one, but because I've already created this and I'm going to be mirroring this in this example, I'm actually going to select the black shape, hit delete or backspace on the keyboard. Poof, it's gone. Select the gradient shape that I've got left and go to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in place. And if I hover over the corner, I see the rotate symbol. And I can freely rotate this around, but I want to get this 180 degrees exactly. So let's hold down Shift on the keyboard and you can see it snaps to set increments. 180 degrees, fantastic. Let's release that and we'll shuffle that into position. I'm holding Shift as well to keep it perfectly horizontal. And what I'm also going to do is just grab the zoom tool here and just zoom in like 50 billion%, nice and close, just to make sure that everything lines up perfectly. And if you are zooming in to these percentages, I think I'm at like 64,000% now. If you get it right and it lines up at 64,000%, when you zoom back out, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be impossible to tell the difference if there are any gaps or not. Unless you want a gap, for example. Actually, no, that looks terrible. Let's put it back. But there we go. So we've created the design now. And as I say, you can go back, check preview, and you can adjust this swatch, and you can see it up